A budget is telling your money where to go instead of wondering where it went. That quote from John Maxwell changed how I felt about budgeting and planning for my money. I used to feel apprehensive about budgeting, and it just felt like another joy-sucking life admin task that I rather wouldn't do. But nothing says welcome to adulting like bills with your name on them. And I found that without budgeting, it's impossible to stay on top of everything and still be building towards the life that I want. I had to reframe how I saw budgeting and realize that it's a spending agreement that I'm making with myself to help me reach my goals and to be able to afford the things that I value. I reframed my experience with budgeting using the 3 steps and the money plan template that we'll talk about today. And this massively changed my ability to meet my financial goals. My hope is that if you currently hate or struggle with budgeting, or you find it confusing, or you just want a different approach with it, this video will transform your relationship with budgeting and planning for your money positively. If you'd like to use the money planner template, I'll link it completely for free in the description below. Step 1 in my process is all about goals. A budget should be in service of your goals, so you can't really do an effective budget or a money plan without first outlining what your goals are so that you know what you're aiming for. So I have a tab for my financial goals, which I split into long-term, annual goals, and monthly goals. So long-term goals will be anything that's more than a year away. So for example, this could be something like, I want to buy a rental property in 3 years' time. Annual goals are goals that I plan to hit within the next year. So this could be anything like a holiday to the Maldives or paying off all credit card debt. Monthly goals are goals that are relevant to the particular month. So for example, this could be contributing to a charitable cause, or reducing maybe spending on clothing for the month, or eating less takeout and cooking more at home. So anything that's relevant for that particular month, I'll put under monthly goals. So going with some of those examples, we can just populate these, for example. So we can say rental property purchase for August 2026. The idea of this tab is to put all the relevant goals. They can be as high level or as detailed as you want, but they just help you when inputting actual numbers to keep at the forefront of your mind what you need to consider when actually populating your money plan. It's also great to have a regular reminder of what matters to you. As part of step 1, I have a separate tab called the target savings tab. Now, what this gives me is an opportunity to break down any expenses that I want to save up for. So it could be the holiday to the Maldives. I would break down how much that's actually going to cost, so I actually have an amount that I know I'm working towards. Or if it's that rental property purchase, I would break down how much I need to save up for a deposit and any other costs that I would incur in trying to acquire that property. So working with the Maldives example, we could say, well, I know I need to pay for flights. Maybe that'll cost me that much. Then I need to pay for activities, and maybe that'll be another $2,000, for example. Actually, for the Maldives, that's probably not realistic. Once I've populated these, I input how many months I plan to save over to bring it back to a monthly amount of how much I should be saving towards that thing. So let's say with the Maldives, for example, so if you're planning on going in, let's say 10 months time, so that gives you a monthly figure of how much you need to be saving every month in order to reach that target. Now, this is also helpful because it lets you know whether something is unrealistic or, if you can actually meet that target saving. So for example, if I was looking at this and I thought, oh, well, I can't put that much towards saving for the holiday every month, it's too much, then that makes your goals more realistic because you then adjust that and say, okay, 10 months time is not feasible. Maybe I could do it over 20 months instead. Once I've populated my goals and target savings information, I can then update the full money plan, which is step 2. The money plan is forward-looking, but it's helpful to have historical information like your bank and credit card statements and any other relevant documents when doing this so that you can be as accurate as possible. So the top part of the plan is your income, and the second half of the plan is your spending and how that's broken down. Column B is your budgeted amounts. Column C is actual amounts. And column D is the difference between the budget and the actual, just to show you how close you were to actually spending within your budget. So you can use that as part of your review process at the end of the month to see how much you kept to your money plan. So column C is optional to populate, but I find it helpful when reflecting at the end of the month, and we'll talk about that later. So for now, let's assume a monthly salary of $3,500. You'd use your pay slips or your bank statement to update that. And once you update it, the cell changes color just to let you know that that cell has been populated. And let's assume maybe you have another income source. You're going to get some dividends this month. You can input that here. And you can obviously just update that column to reflect whatever other income source you have. All the other cells can be updated with any other sources of income that you have. Then we can see what total income is expected for the next month. If your income is variable, you'll have to do a best guess based on information you have about the future and maybe an average of the last couple of months. Then we come down to how this income is going to be spent this month. The first section is the pay yourself first section. So this is whatever you're allocating to your savings and your investments for the month. Or maybe you're saving towards a house and you have one saving pot which is specific for your house. So let's just put an example there. Maybe you're putting 500 towards that. And maybe you have something that you're putting towards your stocks and shares ISA for the month. So you can put in 200 as an example for that. So again, you just update all the other cells with any additional savings or investment pots that you have. Then we're going to come down to household expenses. A lot of these will be pretty fixed month to month, so you could use your previous bank statements to input this and adjust for any future information that you know about. So let's estimate maybe a mortgage. Notice how the percentages down the side are updating as I'm populating this. So this just shows what percentage of my income this category of spending is. So that's telling me that I'm budgeting to spend 47% of my income on household expenses. That's helpful to help me question whether I'm allocating things how I want. Or going back up to the previous section, you could, for example, want to make sure that at least 10% of your income is going to paying yourself first. So you can see here that, 19% of your income is actually going towards paying yourself first. So you're exceeding your target so far. And you can adjust it as you see fit if you're not happy with the result. Obviously, you can't adjust maybe your mortgage instantly, but looking at it like this can help you question whether your mortgage is actually an amount that you're comfortable with. Then you'll do the same with other monthly expenses and debt repayments. Have as many lines as you need so you can be as accurate as possible. The first month of doing this will probably be the most painful, but every other month after that should be a lot easier, as a lot of information will likely be more or less the same, and you just need to tweak and update for any specific or one-off things for the month. So we'll just put in some estimates or some guesses for this for now. So when it comes to your debts, just make sure you have all of your relevant credit card statements and everything so that you can see what are your minimum payments for the month, and you can see whether you're actually covering those from what you're doing. So for example, if you have more than one credit card, you could have, that's your budgeted repayment for the month, making sure it's at least your minimum payment. Maybe you have another credit card that you need to pay with another bank. Let's just say, Then maybe you have a loan that you need to pay off as well. And that's your cost for the month. And putting in descriptions is really helpful. So this could be a loan for, having your garden redone. So you input that for the debt section, making sure you are at least covering your minimum payments, but of course exceeding that wherever possible so that you can pay off the debt as quickly as possible. Then we come to fun money. Now, these are costs I don't really need to live, but it's stuff I like to spend money on. So this is stuff like entertainment, going out for drinks, going out to restaurants. If you've got any fun events coming up, like a concert, this is the kind of thing that would go on here. So let's say I like to go out a couple of times a month with my friends and I have a budget for that. I'll put that in there. And you can be specific as well, just so that you're more clear. Maybe I want to get my nails done this month, and maybe that costs that. So we could even update for that Maldives holiday here. What amount? Come to $725. Okay. And maybe you also have mom's birthday coming up, and she's quite posh, so maybe you need to get her a nice fancy present. So you can put that into your budget as well. So at the end, you should have all of your expected expenses. You have to include everything so that the plan is as accurate as it can be. There are also two important checks that I like to do at this stage. The first one being, does my income for the month match or exceed my spending? So I've built in those checks into the spreadsheet. And again, it's split between for your budget and for your actual. If the answer comes up with a warning, that tells me that the spending is more than my income. And I don't want that, because that implies I'm probably going to go into debt to finance this month's spending. So that means I need to go back and relook at my spending and adjust where necessary. And if it comes up with a yes, then that means it's fine. So it's yes for actuals because we've not put anything in there. But here I can see that I am £335 over budget. So you can now go back and question this and say, okay, where can I cut back? Ideally, you'll start with cutting back maybe on the fun money or anywhere else where you maybe realize that, okay, you've put too much money there. Maybe you only go out once with your friends for the month and you only spend 50 there. And maybe you need to reassess that Maldives holiday again. Maldives is expensive. Maybe you need to push that out even further. Okay, we'll just change that so we can balance just to illustrate this. So you see that's now changed to a yes because my total spending is 3,700, which matches my total income, which is 3,700. Now, I'm just going to undo that to illustrate the second check quickly. The second check that I like to do is every dollar accounted for? Which means, does my spending match my income? That tells me that every dollar has been allocated to something, so either to paying myself first or to other spending categories. And the error message alerts me if my income and my spending are not in balance. So that could be because you have leftover money, i.e. money that you've earned but you've not really allocated it to anything, or it could mean you've overspent in your budget, so your spending is exceeding your income. So if it comes up with an error message, that's what the second check is just telling me. It's just telling me I haven't allocated every dollar accurately to something. That could be an over allocation or an under allocation. If I redo that adjustment, you'll see it now works because all of my spending matches all of my income, which is 3,700. And that's just because I like every dollar to be accounted for. Also worth mentioning that you can add extra lines into the spreadsheet. So I just make sure when I do it that it's at least above the last line in my spreadsheet so that I don't mess with any of the formulas. So for example, I would come and add a line above. So the last line is row 10 and I can add any lines above this and it won't mess up my formulas. Now, step 3 in the process is all about reflecting. The first tab I like to make use of in this step is the charts tab. Now, this is just a graphical representation of how my income is allocated across the different spending categories. So you can see from this, it's telling me that total pay yourself first is 19%. Total household expenses is 47% of my income. Fund money is 22% of my income. Seeing something presented visually just hits different to reading numbers sometimes. So I love seeing how the pie of my income is being distributed. It's another great point to reflect and see if my spending allocation is looking how I want it to look. If I see that I'm spending 4.5% of my income on debt repayments, am I happy with that? Do I think I need to push up the debt repayments and therefore maybe cut back in some of the other categories? This is also where it's useful to complete the actuals at the end of the month, as you can then see a comparison of what you said you'd spend versus what you actually did spend. So you can use apps to help track and categorize your actuals, or you can update them periodically from your bank and credit card statements. You'll see here, because I've put nothing in the actuals so far, this is all just a bunch of formulas. But if I go back into my money plan and I put in some amounts, okay, let's just assume, I don't know. Yeah, we'll keep that the same. And let's just put in some amounts. And let's say maybe I actually ended up saving less and putting less into investments. It's just to illustrate that once you actually start to populate it, your split will actually update as well. So you'll actually be able to come here and compare the two and see whether or not you're happy. So this is what your budgeted income split was going to be. What's your actual? Are you happy with this? Where do you need to tweak and adjust things? I also happen to have it in a bar graph below, just because sometimes it's more helpful to see it as a bar graph rather than a pie. So just depends how you like to see it really. But it's exactly the same information, just presented differently using the different charts. Then I come to the part of my money plan that I like to do with a cup of tea, and it's the reflections tab. So on this, I have 3 key questions that I think are important to have a think about after I've finalized the money plan. Number 1 is my money plan honest and realistic? This is important to ask, otherwise you're fooling yourself and you're not achieving anything. You'll be demotivated and think budgeting or planning for your money doesn't work if you haven't been honest on your planned spending, or if you've been overly optimistic in your income. When you see yourself achieving the things you put down, I can't put into words how motivating that is. So don't shoot yourself in the foot by making the budget or the money plan unrealistic. It's important to apply yourself when doing this and just own it. If you spend £200 every month on clothes and you feel guilty about it, then rather work on what is making you spend an amount you aren't comfortable with, rather than pretend you don't do it. So look at your prior month's spending, and if there's a habit you want to address, then address it. The honest and realistic bit is also best assessed when you've updated the actuals, because you can see then how much you're able to stick to your money plan. Another easy way to track some of your actuals is putting money into separate accounts for certain expenditures, especially the ones that you are most likely to go over budget on. So you could, for example, have a separate bank account for your clothes shopping, so that you don't have to think about it. You know, this is my clothes money account. There's 150 pounds in there. Once that's gone, I can't buy any more clothes for the month. Then the second question is, are my financial goals and their order of priority reflected in my money plan? Now, that's why we started with step 1. For example, if you said your number 1 goal is buying a house, then you see from the money plan that you're spending more on clothes monthly than you're putting into your house deposit savings. Then you need to check yourself. Or you say you want to buy a rental property in 5 years' time, but there's nothing in your current spending allocated to that. It's just a cause for reflection and questioning whether you're really living out what you say are your goals. The third question I like to ask is my money plan moving me towards financial stability? So number 2 and 3 can be the same for some people, but I like to split it out just in case the goals I've put for myself aren't necessarily the best for my financial future. So am I happy with how much I'm saving and investing? Basically, am I spending my money in a way that will grow wealth for the future? Feel free to add more questions for yourself that will really challenge your money habits. I hope you found that really useful. And remember, if you'd like to use it, there's a link in the description below to download the money planner completely for free. Let me know in the comments how you find using it. Thanks for watching.